Hello again. Now, first I need to say about the sound on my last video. I must apologise for the background hiss. I used a stereo microphone which I had sort of pinned here, and it I don't know why it was so much hiss on the background. It shouldn't have been. So what I'm doing on this video is to use the microphone that's in the webcam I'm using. So hopefully it'll be a bit better. You'll probably pick up other strange sounds with it. This squeaky chair I'm sat in for a start, you probably picked that up, but anyway, I hope it's a bit clearer all round. And when I get to the end, I'll probably boost the volume a bit as well, because I do talk rather quietly now. Thank you for all the comments and for all the views of my last video and all the others. It always amazes me that so many people, watch my videos, because judging from so many comments, there's so many of you out there in the same boat that I was in. So I hope I am kind of bringing a message of hope to you all, that you can actually get free of this state. It is possible to do, which is what I'm here to say, and that's what I've done. And what I wanted to do on this video is actually talk about how recovery actually worked for me and how it came about, what it was actually like. Because if I talk about that, I can give you kind of some sort of expectation as to your own progress and where you are and where you're likely to get to. And I think the main change for me occurred last year, and it came about in a strange way, really, because all the years that I'd been suffering prior to that, and it all started off again for me in 2003 with panic attacks, and the anxiety just went on and on after that. It was a realisation I came to last year, which kind of clinched it for me. It kind of made me realise that I was actually not in the anxiety state anymore. Now, realising that, I accepted the fact that by virtue of my nature, I was always going to have anxiety at times for different reasons. That is just me. That is my sensitive nervous system, if you like, which is always going to react the way it has done. But the difference now is that I don't need to suffer all the intense effects I used to get, and my nervous system was sensitized. Now that is, that's the main issue with the anxiety state. It is this sensitized state, which I've talked about a lot, and which still the medical profession don't seem to understand when it comes to treating it. They don't appreciate the role it plays in keeping people in the anxiety state. So it's no wonder that they don't really understand it, and in many cases their only recourse is medication. And I expect the same could be said of a lot of therapists too, that they don't understand this sensitization factor. So again, they can't fully understand what their patient is going through, and this is the main difficulty, not just for the medical profession, but for a sufferer's family and friends, those around who can't appreciate this. They can't get their heads around how intense it all is, because every one of them will have had anxiety at some point in their lives, would have been frightened of something, but they can't conceive of this kind of anxiety. So it is something you have to have experienced to really appreciate it. So when I talk about my recovery, I'm talking about my recovery from the sensitized state. And it came about in a rather roundabout fashion, because I mentioned on an earlier video, in 2013 I had a slight stroke which affected my eye movement, which in turn affected my balance. And for months following that, balance became an issue with me. And it wasn't just the after effects of the stroke, where my eyes didn't move properly and I used to get double vision and dizziness because of that. What also happened was I became so conscious of balance in general. I turned it into another item, if you like, to be afraid of, compared to all the other things that I've been worried about over the years. So what happened for some time after that was a kind of concentration on balance and on dizziness and lightheadedness. It was always the centre of my attention. And after about 18 months, 2 years of this, I'd been able to work a bit, not very much, not as much as I would have liked to have. I still wasn't very mobile. And I'd reached a point where I was really depressed over it all, because I thought, well, this is never really going to, things are never going to be the same for me now this has happened. Which, having said that, obviously there are so many more people who suffered strokes whose disabilities are far worse than what I suffered. I got it very lightly, considering. But, like I said, there was a point where I really wanted to pack it all in and just not do anything anymore. I thought, I can't tolerate this anymore. Everything I tried to do, it affected me, and I felt like I was falling over all the time. I used to move a bed, I was kind of lurching side to side and bumping into things, and I thought, well, this is kind of more than I can put up with. And so after about a couple of years of being like this, sorry, Mowgli's come in. Hello, Mowgli. I wanted to give up, and I even tried to fight to see if I could get some help, financial help, because I figured that my work, which had been pretty minimal to start with, I wasn't going to be able to do much at all. But that didn't come to anything. They didn't consider I was disabled enough. Cut a long story short. So I thought, well, it's got to mean that I'm not meant to do this. I'm not meant to give up on myself in this way. So after some more months of sort of dithering around and not doing anything much, I thought, well, come on then. Sorry, he's going to jump on my lap. I'll treat these after effects in the same way that I learned to treat my anxiety feelings, in that I would see what I could do with those feelings there. So that's what I started to do. I started to broaden the scope of what I did. Oh, hello. I started to go further afield. I started to do things I thought I couldn't do. And through most of last year in particular, I started doing a lot more adventurous things. There was still virtually no work. My business was sort of floundering. Yeah, we are. There's no microphone here for you to purr in today, so I don't know how well people can hear you. I started to... There was one thing in particular I wanted to tackle, and I thought, well, if I can cope with this, then that's a good sign. And that was the state of our garden, which didn't sound much, but it was a jungle. I used to go out there and I think, well, how on earth can I ever get this sorted out? But I thought, well, that can be my sort of project, if you like, to see how I get on there. I spent most of the spring and the summer last year doing just that, and it was hard going because, the gardening was a lot of bending, stretching and twisting around, and the balance was all over the place. And I used to have to sit down at intervals just to kind of regain my balance properly, and then I could do a bit more. But I kept at it, and by the end of last summer I thought, well, I've really done quite a lot, far more than I ever imagined I would be able to do. And it gave me a sort of confidence in my ability. Now this is exactly the same as the confidence you get when you're learning how to cope with your anxiety. When you, in my last video I talked about going out and taking all this stuff with you, taking these feelings with you, so that you gradually see that none of this stuff is ever really going to stop you. It doesn't need to stop you. You can still go ahead. And so when I sort of stopped, got as far as I wanted to go on the card, and I sort of stood back and looked at it, I thought about my stroke, and I thought, well, this is really a case of accepting it. There was nothing else I could do with it. You're alright then. You're a lovely boy, he's very cute. Yeah, we can't hear you so much today because there's no microphone. Anyway, no, don't bite me. You didn't mean it. Yeah, I thought about how I was left, what the stroke had left me like, and I thought, well, doctors had told me at the time that there was a 50-50 chance of it ever, righting itself. I thought, well, there's nothing I can do about that. If it did, so much the better, but there's every chance that it never would. In which case, I had no alternative but to adapt everything I did around it. And again, like I said, so many other people have adapted to far worse than that, and carried on with their lives. But when I came to this conclusion, I thought, well, this is it. I've got this thing, and I've just got to live with it. I thought, well, that's no different, really, from the anxiety feelings themselves. Indeed, I've been using the same approach to this as I have been with the anxiety symptoms, just taking it all with me. But what really struck me was the thought that I realised I couldn't change my stroke effects, but then I thought, well, I can't actually change my anxiety feelings either. I couldn't sort of will them away or think them away any more than I could do the same with my stroke effects. So when I saw this, I thought, well, it's no wonder I've still been in this state because of what I've been doing. I've been trying so hard to be rid of the anxiety feelings. I understood acceptance. I'd known about it for so many years, but I was still getting it wrong because I was trying too hard, trying to make this stuff go away. And then I saw that, I didn't need to do this, and I couldn't do this. I never could, never would be able to. So all I could do was leave it as it was and just get on with it as I had to do with the stroke effects. But the big difference with anxiety is that I knew that they weren't a permanent fixture, even though they felt they were. They were not. They were there because of sensitized nerves, and it was all this struggling, straining, trying to be rid of this stuff that had kept my nerves sensitized. That's all it was. So from that point on, I kind of felt a kind of relief, because I thought, well, I don't have to do anything about this anymore, because I don't need to do anything about it. There's nothing I can do, because my body has to do the healing. My nervous system has to heal. I can't force it to happen anymore. Any more than I have no influence over any other kind of bodily healing. Like when you cut yourself or anything like that, that just repairs itself, and this is exactly the same with your nervous system. And from that point on, things really began to change, because I no longer was involved in this constant struggle trying to do this acceptance method the way I thought I should do it. Don't bite me. He's trying to get my attention, biting my hand. You don't mean it, do you? So, it was really strange, because it was a kind of obvious thing that I thought, but it struck me so like a bolt of lightning. I thought, that's the mistake I've been making. And it's no wonder, in that case, that I haven't been recovering. Anyway, emboldened by all my success with my garden and all the various other things I've been doing, I began to think, well, there was still an element within me that kept holding me back because of the anxiety, especially the dizziness, and I'd learned how to cope with that quite effectively. It still used to flare up quite badly sometimes, but I was able to deal with it. I was able to accept it. So in the months that followed, this was sort of late last summer, I had started to feel more capable of turning my attention elsewhere, because up until that point, anxiety really had consumed me. It was my life, and I'm sure many of you know what I mean by that. It's just the main focus. Everything else is secondary to your anxiety. And as I'll talk about this in another video, I want to talk about the role of thought, the way your thinking affects your anxiety, but I won't preempt that by talking about that now. But what happened at that time is that suddenly I had an idea out of nowhere of something I could try for my business, which had been doing nothing. I'd had one job for the whole of that year, and financially things were dreadful. And I thought, well, I'll give this idea a go. And within a few weeks, much to my amazement, I started to get work, and the work just kept coming in. And since that time, work has continued to arrive, and it's been quite incredible how my shift in attitude towards myself and my illness kind of affected other areas of my life, because the acceptance approach of this is how I am, this is the way I feel, these are the feelings I'm getting. As I learned how to really do that, it kind of spilled over into my life in general. And I felt like I no longer had to try. As far as work was concerned, I no longer had to try the way I had been trying. Because in the months following my stroke, when I was trying to get myself orientated to the way I was, I made some really desperate attempts to get work. I mean, there were stupid things I did, really stupid. And I wasted a lot of money that I couldn't afford at that time. But now, things were just happening by themselves, or so it seemed. And it was then I saw very clearly that I no longer needed to think of myself as being in an anxiety state, because anxiety now kind of took its proper place. I now had this business idea, I had an interest, something, it wasn't just business, but this was a main focus. One of the main focuses for me was this. And for the first time in years, my attention finally began to shift away from anxiety and all the effects of it towards something else. And this is a feature of recovery. It's when you stop being so interested in your anxiety state, which, you might think interested is the wrong word. Well, you certainly put a lot of attention on it, a great deal of attention on it, and this is that which kind of maintains it, because you're always focusing on it, you're always watching it, you're always measuring it, you're always analysing it, questioning it. And that happens, like I said, it happens at the exclusion of everything else. So things began to change, and over the last year it's been quite amazing. I mean, this is another thing I want to emphasise again, is that you're not looking for recovery where you never feel fear again. That's impossible, because fear is in us, it's in every one of us. It's part of our makeup. You can't expect to abolish fear from your life completely. But what recovery actually means is that you're no longer in this cycle of fear. In the time when I was practicing all through last year, what had happened is that my nervous system had had a chance to calm itself down. It's the sensitization I talked about began to heal itself. So the feelings of fear began to die down, and not just the feelings, the thoughts as well, as I've suggested a lot of my other videos. So by late last summer, I felt like finally with that realization that I didn't have to do any more. I could just let anxiety sort itself out, basically, whatever was left. And with all this work that was going in, I know, of course, I had to start doing things I hadn't done much of for a long time, like going out meeting people, doing jobs I hadn't done before, doing a lot of technical stuff because I fix computers for a living. That's what I have been doing. And, well, just things have continued in that way. And I can look back at it all now from a totally different perspective, which is why probably if you look through how my videos have changed since I started doing them over 2 years ago, there may be times where I kind of contradict what I said before because my, how can I put it, my perspective has changed on it. I can see things now from a distance, if you like. I wasn't, in my early days, I was actually still right in it, but now I can look at it in a different way. I've had time to kind of look at it, look back on it and see where I'm not right in the thick of it. I can now sort of look at it in a much more objective, dispassionate way. And that's, that's how it was for me. It was basically a question of not forcing my attention elsewhere, but it was a combination of practicing taking fear with me, dealing with all the fear effects, and just carrying on with it there. Practice, over and over again. And the confidence gradually grew with me. Like I said in my last video, my kind of inner dialogue started to change, and it was no longer full of gloom and hopelessness, but instead I was getting encouraging thoughts like, well, see what you managed to do, look, see you can do it. And that's what happens when you start doing these things. Even if you feel terrible when you're doing them, you've got fear raging inside of you in some fashion, if you still do them, it's a success because you've done it in spite of it. That's what you practice doing. As you keep doing that, and I know it's tiring, it's very tiring, as you keep practicing doing it, gradually the confidence grows and you begin to see anxiety, that you see it's not something that needs to control you anymore, because you can still carry on with your life and let the healing process, the anxiety, the sensitization healing process carry on. And that's really something that can happen very quickly once you change your attitude. It's this constant struggle to be free of it. That's the wrong attitude. I don't underestimate it. Please don't ever think I underestimate how intense it is, because I've been in exactly that state. And I was in it for a long time. Well, right, cheerio. Ray's just jumped off. And that's another thing I should mention when I, changes in the way I talk about anxiety as my videos progress. I sense sometimes I tend to be sort of too matter-of-fact about how these feelings are. I don't mean it to be that way, but I just, that's how it is sometimes. That's always my phone ringing, just ignore it. Anyway, I thought I'd give you that to think about and see how it applies, how this shift in perspective, this shift in attitude, how you could apply that to your own situation. And then maybe, you might begin to understand what it is that you're currently not doing or doing wrong way, which is still keeping you the way you are. I'm always aware of how much I am asking people when I suggest doing it this way, because it just seems like a very, very difficult thing to do, but in the beginning, it's getting it started that's the difficult part. It's getting over your inertia, your unwillingness to treat your anxiety in a different way. And as I've said before, it's because of this unquestioned kind of assumption you have that if you stop fighting your anxiety, that it somehow will get worse. And it's all based on the illusion that you can control your anxiety, when in actual fact you can't. You never could. So once you get over that kind of doubt, and you start going in and doing the things you previously avoided, as the confidence grows, you are on your way to recovery. Once you start doing it this way, you are on that road. And nothing can stop you. Nothing. Yes, you will have stops and starts, you'll have setbacks, of course you will. There will be times when your kind of focus slips a bit and you think, oh, this is never going to work, and you think, why am I doing all this? And it all seems too much to do. And believe you me, I've had plenty of such occasions in my own recovery where I just thought it was all too much. But always, once I'd seen success, and once I'd had success and seen what I could do in spite of how I felt, there was always this kind of nagging feeling inside of me that I wanted to continue, that I really, really did not want to spend the entire rest of my life in this state. And I knew that, that nagging thought was never going to go away, so it just prompted me to keep on and start again if I had to. Keep on and on doing it. And it paid off. It paid off in the end. And nowadays, these days, well, I can still get times where, stress comes upon me and I get the old feelings I used to get. And very occasionally I might even kind of lapse back into the old habit of saying, why this now? That sort of thing. But it never lasts long, because the way I learned to do it before, that has become a habit now. The acceptance habit, that's what happens. So I can just kind of go through that phase and not get caught up in the cycle again like I used to. And this is the main benefit of doing things this way, is that once you've learned how to do it, for the rest of your life, you never ever need to go back into this state again. Yes, you will get under stress. Yes, there will be times where you feel the feelings of fear just as anybody would, but you won't ever need to go back into this cycle of adding fear to those feelings, and that's what it's all about. Anyway, I think I probably talked long enough on this one, and I hope the sound's better. I'll listen to it back before I post it anyway, so I'll try boosting the volume up a bit. So please be encouraged. Please believe me when I say that wherever you are and however dreadful your life seems, you can recover, because nothing is being done to you. This is you doing it to yourself. It's not an incurable illness. It's just basically a misunderstanding. And once you understand properly and you know what to do, then it solves itself. And that's a nice thought, isn't it? Anyway, until next time, thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.